What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Revival Method podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Brandon Parker, and in today's episode, I wanted to share with you a quick story because I feel like this story not only shares a lot of value, but also has the potential to shift your perspective. So, every year, my family goes on a 15-mile canoe trip. And on this canoe trip, we're also camping for 2 days out in the wilderness. So, just to kind of give you a perspective here, we would load up all of the gear that we would need for the 2 days into our canoe. We would shove off, go about 7 miles, and then we would set up shop, carry all this awkward equipment up a steep hill that's sandy, so you have no traction, and then enjoy our time there, sleep on a hard floor, and then pack up all of our stuff and put it back into the canoe and travel down the way until we found another spot. And what I found to be very cool about this experience is, yes, I'm spending time with my loved ones, doing something relatively hard and challenging, and we're all accomplishing this together. But there was layers to this. So first and foremost, I look around the campsite and I see a large range of ages. We have somebody as young as 20 on the trip. We have somebody as old as 75 on the trip. And those who are older and more experienced tend to be faster in the canoe. I mean, there's a skill set there that the younger guys didn't have yet. And to see how age wasn't used as an excuse to be able to hold your own on this physically challenging trip was a thing of beauty. Because I work with older adults who have definitely used their age as a crutch. And I understand why, because you don't necessarily understand the inner workings of what's happening through a lifespan. So the only thing that you can really point out is the difference. Well, I was once 20 feeling great, and now I'm 40, 50, 60, and I'm not feeling great. But then they forget about the fact that they haven't prioritized their life in a very long time because they've either prioritized their job or their family, and they let their own health slip down the priority list. And to just see that contrast was a thing of beauty. But to see that go on, like the large variety of people, but then also think to myself, we're doing a relatively physically demanding thing, and yet nobody's leaving this trip feeling beat up. There's no injuries occurring. Why is that? Because you can see somebody do something as simple as bend over, pick up their wallet, and throw their back out. I hear it all the time. You have somebody that's, let's say, doing landscaping and they jack up their rotator cuff. Why is that? And I think it all comes down to a couple of principles that I think I can at least outline here today. So, in a nutshell, the reason why no one's getting injured on our trip is they were prepared and they knew how to manage load. Let's start off with the prepared piece here. When you put a date on a calendar, when you say, I'm going to do this thing at this time and here's my money, it becomes instantaneously real. And when you put something very real on a calendar, subconsciously, you will start aligning your behaviors to that event that you have set for yourself. Reason being, no one wants to be exposed. No one wants to be out on that river dying because they're out of breath or they're not strong enough or they haven't been adequately nourishing their body for the last couple months. No one wants to be in that circumstance, especially when everyone around you is having a great time. So it's almost like positive peer pressure that you're putting on yourself. So that's why I fundamentally believe that whatever this trip or event may be, you should have something on your calendar at least one time per year that's going to celebrate your current strength, mobility, and health, or even better, it's something that makes you strive to have a better version of yourself where you are more healthy, more strong, and more mobile. And that could be hiking, that could be a 10K, that could be walking the Camino in Europe. Whatever you think that you want to aspire to be, please make it real because it is a really powerful tool. But aside from making it very real and putting it on a calendar, and you start to subconsciously align yourself in a way that you should to not get exposed, I think another cool aspect of this is understanding how to manage load and stress. Because I fundamentally see, I don't have the data in front of me, but I feel like at least 80% of the people that come see me and they're injured and they don't know what to do, it's because they do not understand this principle of knowing how to manage load properly. And that's why a lot of people that are stuck are the all or nothing mentality people, where they have a certain workout that was given to them, even though it was a generalistic cookie cutter program that has them doing a tremendous amount of exercise stress, that they do it anyways, even though they haven't been sleeping, even though they're highly stressed because of their work, or they haven't been nourishing their body. And they create an environment where their body can't keep up. It can't keep up with the stress that you're placing on it. And then it gets injured and breaks down. You see, exercise is vital to our health, but too much of a good thing could be a bad thing. Exercise is still stress. And if we do too much of exercise, we are now turning something that is I would consider the fountain of youth to something that's going to accelerate our disability. And that's why we have to create this relationship of how much is enough. And to tie this back into the story of my family going on this canoe trip, how is it that nobody was hurt? Okay, well, step number one, they had proper functioning in their joints, their shoulders, their backs. They were all able to rotate, bend, twist in every range of motion with strength. Because if you didn't have this range of motion, your body wouldn't let you in it. Now imagine how hard it would be on every other aspect of your body or part of your body if your spine couldn't rotate and bend to the right if you were canoeing to the right. Very hard, right? Because you're going to have to take that stress and place it elsewhere. You don't just not experience the stress, it just gets dispersed in a different way. So the first fundamental step is making sure that your body has access to all of the positions that your structure should have the ability to access. And that's why I'm always so big on restoring joint function. If your hips can't rotate, your lower back takes on way too much stress. If your shoulders can't rotate, your neck takes on too much stress. That's why if we can evenly disperse the stress across the body, your chances of being injured dramatically plummets. So that's step one. And I'm always talking about how you would do this. I have the PDF that's on my email list that shows you how to do this. So I don't want to unpack that too much because it's super contextualized. But we're going to go on to step two here of why they weren't getting injured. Step two was, now that they had full functioning joints and their body can access all the ranges of motion, now are they strong enough? Do they have the protective strength to ward off the stresses that they're currently experiencing? If I were to make injury as simplistic as I can, injury occurs when stress is placed on the body that is higher than what our body can currently handle. If I can only lift 100 pounds and you put 200 pounds on my body, chances are I'm going to be injured. If I haven't slept in a very long time and my recovery is very low, chances are I'm not going to be at my strongest. So something as small as, let's say, going for a mile run and I can run multiple miles might be more stress than I currently can handle, and that can create an injury. So when we're on this canoe trip and we are sleep deprived, because you're not going to get your best sleep when you are sleeping in a tent in the middle of nowhere, we have to have strategies to manage the load that we're experiencing. How do we do that? Well, if I'm canoeing 15 miles down the canoe trip, I need to disperse stress adequately. I would make sure that I'm not just paddling on the one side of the boat, so only my right shoulder is getting all the exercise. So I would make sure that I'm going from left to right as much as I can. In fact, my shoulders were feeling pretty cooked last year, so what I actually did is I turned the boat around and I was rowing backwards So I didn't use my rotator cuff and back. I was using my pecs in the front of my shoulders, giving my back a break, dispersing the stress across my body. How does this matter, or why does this matter? Well, it's no different than if I am in the gym. If my knees are feeling like they're overworked from just day-to-day activity, I'm going to find ways to offload it. Maybe I'm taking stairs and my knees hurt. I can take 2 steps at a time, make sure that I'm loading my glute more than my knees, and I can take that stress off my knees. I can widen my stance out when it comes to squatting. If it was for my shoulder, I can keep my shoulders tucked close to my body to give my shoulder a little bit of extra help and support. It's all about how do we modify stress to make sure that the under-recovered area is getting the rest that it needs to avoid any injury. So that is another reason why the people on this trip didn't get injured. They had a protective level of strength, meaning they were stronger than the stresses that were placed on the body. If they're carrying an awkward 40-pound cooler up a uphill sandy dune and they didn't get injured, fundamentally, they were stronger than that activity. And that's why they didn't get hurt. If they didn't get hurt rowing 15 miles, that means fundamentally their body could have done 20. So the stronger that we become through an entire range of motion, it reduces our chances of getting injured. So just to recap thus far, we had full range of motion throughout our entire body. Nothing was restricted. We had the ability to get into every position. 2, we had a protective level of strength, meaning we were stronger than the stresses that were being placed on our body. And on top of that, we were stronger than the stresses being placed on our body, even when we were under-recovered because sleep isn't the best out there. And the last thing, 3, is what I would consider just having a higher level of awareness. And that's just understanding that there might be times that you have to take a break. It's simple enough, right? It's a 15-mile canoe trip. It's a marathon, not a race. And this gets tied back to how I see so many people feeling like if they skip a day in the gym, they are losing or they're failing themselves or they're not staying committed. But in fact, the veteran move here is to take that break, is to allow the body to recover, because one day of you taking a step back and recovering isn't going to ruin your progress. But if you overreach and get injured and you are now impaired for a couple of weeks, that will completely smother the progress that you could have made in the same amount of time. I guess what I'm trying to say here is the key to moving and feeling your best is to have a relationship with your body and to completely drop all expectations that the fitness industry and what I would say I would leave it at the fitness industry, what the fitness industry and health industry has imposed upon you. The way that people try to get your attention is they make outlandish claims. They Photoshop people's bodies. They come out with supplements with nothing really backing it other than millions of dollars of marketing. And that has skewed your expectations of what is necessary to be strong, to be healthy. It's not as complicated when it comes to theory. The complication comes to knowing what your preferences are, knowing the current lifestyle situation that you're in. Maybe you have kids, maybe you have grandkids, maybe you just can't sleep because of stress, and applying that all together to come up with a game plan that matches you. So I guess if I had to leave you with something to ponder is, what type of celebration do you want to do? How would you prepare for it? Do you have full range of motion through the entirety of your body? If not, where are you restricted and how are we going to fix that? Do you have a protective level of strength? And if not, what are we going to do to fix that? And then lastly, have you been digging yourself a hole, creating an environment that you couldn't recover from, and therefore being the very reason why you haven't been able to progress? I would love for you to think about that. if you don't know where to start when it comes to your strength training with your mobility training, I have the Mobility Made Simple PDF on my email list. You get it when you first sign up. If you're already a part of my email list and you haven't gotten it, just email me. I'll send it to you. And of course, with my email list, that is a direct line to me. Message me. Ask me what's going on. Like, ask me if you need any type of pointers, things like that. It is your direct line of communication to me because I understand having a large platform, you might feel like I'm not that reachable, but I really am. As long as I'm not, swamped at work, I try to get to every single one of my emails. And then I just want to leave this off as saying that thank you all for listening. I mean, allowing me to be a part of your journey means a lot to me. And I keep on seeing the subscription numbers of the podcast going up, the listening numbers of the podcast going up, and I really do appreciate that. So if you've been listening to this point and you haven't given the show a 5-star review, it would mean the absolute world to me because that will allow me to have a bigger meta impact, meaning I can help more people. And that's what my ultimate goal is here. So anyways, love y'all. I'll see y'all next week.